Hello and welcome to another live ABRSM Trinity oral training session. And in this episode I want you to participate, because without participation this live stream would be a little bit of a flop. Okay, it's a live interactive oral ABRSM training session, and for Trinity College as well. Now, the rules of this, for those of you who are new, or for those who are maybe been here before, but just to remind you, is that you need to be playing at the live moment. So if you're joining late and you've gone back to the beginning, don't watch from the beginning now. Fast forward to the live moment so that you can participate in the questions that we're going to be asking. And then later, if you want to go back and listen from the beginning, you can do so. Okay. Now, first of all, we're going to ask the general open-ended question that we've asked at the beginning of the last few live streams. And this is actually a grade 8 type question, but it's suitable for any grade, because the question is, describe any notable features that you notice about the piece that I'm going to play for you in a minute. Okay, so these notable features could be, for example, the dynamics, the articulation if you're just doing grade 1, or if you're up to grade 2. I see we have someone from grade 2, so welcome Levana. Then in grade 2 you have to talk about the tempo changes, in grade 3 about the tonality. As you go through the grades you need to talk about the character, the style of the piece, the period it comes from, any differences in the structure, the texture of the piece. And so this question is suitable for all grades. So whatever grade you're on, have a listen to this piece I'm going to play you in a second, and then see if you can describe any notable features. Okay, so here is your piece. Okay, now we had another person who had a message, but they decided to delete it. So, can you tell me any notable features about the piece that you just heard? Okay, Yvette, you're from grade 7. So maybe you would like to talk about some of the things to do with the character, the style, the period of music. Okay, now, it gets slower towards the end, XLDM. Now that would be from the grade 2 sort of syllabus, about the speed of the music, so that is true. Okay, butterfly wings, mainly loud dynamic, and the use of rubato, major, minor, major key. Excellent answers there. So we answered something about the tonality. Can anyone tell me what time signature, how many beats are in a bar? Now, right back from grade 1, and you also need to do this all the way up through the grades, is to recognize how many beats are in a bar. Okay, so as I play maybe a little bit of the introduction again, you can clap along. Obviously I can't hear you clapping, which would be in a proper ABRSM oral test, but just try and clap along and put a louder clap at the beginning of each bar. So like a, if it were in 2, or if you're in 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. You can do this in your own home and maybe be embarrassed by those who are listening to you what you're doing, but have a try. I'm just going to play you a few bars. We have an answer already. See if everyone agrees. Okay, we still have just one answer. Carrying on though. Okay, well, this is George. Maybe everyone is in agreement with you, or everyone else is just too shy, but you are actually correct. Okay, and Butterfly Wings is saying, yay 340 and only embarrassed by my cats listening. Yes, and Napura Simchik, I think it's Lavana, it's in 3 time. Yes. So, that is one of the very simple questions you might get. Now, someone's already talked about the dynamics. Can we just scroll back? I'll get my mouse, excuse me a second, and see what someone mentioned about the dynamics. Just going up a little bit, or unless someone wants to mention it again. Here we go. Because it could go back, yes. Taking grade 2, get started towards the end. Right, Butterfly Wings said mainly a loud dynamic and the use of rubatos. Right, so mainly a loud dynamic. Can we have a little bit more detail? Now, okay, I'm going to go back down to the bottom of this scrolling. Okay, and I just want to play you the first page again. Maybe we could be very specific about what dynamics are used in the first page. Okay, so there is definitely some loud playing there, but what about any changes in dynamics? Right, there is a crescendo towards the end. So is that a crescendo from loud to very loud, or did something else happen? Okay, Nikos, Lambrou, loud, then it gets softer and gradually getting louder again. So the change from loud to soft at first was a sudden change, but then the change from soft back to loud again was a gradual change. And that is the style of question you would get maybe in a grades 1 or grade 2 type of oral test, okay? They might ask you, were the changes sudden or gradual? Okay, now next I wanted to think about the tempo. Someone's already mentioned that it gets slower towards the end, so well done that. And also the tonality. Now again, I think it was Butterfly Wings already said that it got from a major key to a minor key and then back to major again. So those questions we've covered. Now, the next thing is probably about a grade 4 standard, but anyone can join in. Okay, the character of the piece. Now this is a question that often confuses a lot of people because they don't know what the question means. What is the character of the piece and what musical features give this piece its character? Okay, now by character it's just literally what sort of emotions does it convey within you. I had a student recently, in fact just this morning on Skype, and I got them to draw a picture of one of their pieces, and it was called The Stowaway, and it's all about a man who's hiding in the bottom of a ship and hiding away. And I said, find a picture or draw a picture that conveys the mood of this piece, and they printed off some little picture of someone tiptoeing around. And this is the idea when it's asking about the character of the piece. So, tell me about the character of this. I'm going to play it again. Do we have any takers? Not many answers coming through at this moment. We've talked about some of the musical features that give the piece its character, but what exactly is the character? What mood does it create? So you could say something very simple like happy or sad, or angry or intense. There are lots of different adjectives. How does it make you feel when you think about the emotions that this piece describes? Espressivo. Now there's an interesting word. Expressive. Okay. It's somber and calm. Welcome back, Komsomonichi. I think we remember you from previous live streams. Okay, now here is a test of anyone who knows German. Okay, XLDM says a happy mood. Now, in this piece, there are two distinct sections, and this is probably a little bit of a trick. Okay, so maybe I could ask, how does the character change in the piece? Yes, I do still remember you. All my subscribers, especially the ones who make frequent comments, I remember. Okay, now, at the beginning, I'll give you a clue for those of you who know German. It says lustig, and in the second half, it says traurig. Now, if anyone knows German, I've just given you the answer, but for those of you who don't know German, what do you think lustig and traurig mean? You wouldn't get this in the ABRSM oral tests, but I'm just giving you a little clue at the moment. What does lustig? Funny, well, we're in the right area. The answer's funny, but cheerful, I think, is the proper word. Okay. And then, what about traurig? Anyone got a... Happy and sad. That's correct, butterfly wings. Okay. Now, I've got a few answers coming in now. In my mind, I see a bit of Cinderella story, loud and quite majestic in the beginning, announcing her arrival, then softer dancing at the ball. And she loses her shoe, which is something sad, yes, and the chase begins. Okay. Then majestic again when they found her and they attend another ball. Okay, well, there's a nice little picture. And if you said something like that in the exam, I'm sure the examiner would be very pleased that you expressed the character of the piece, because to you it painted a picture in your mind. And that's what you've got to do with these pieces. And by the way, not just in your oral tests, but also in your performing. When you do pieces, you should always have a picture in your mind. What does this piece convey? All right, not just playing the notes and getting it technically correct, but conveying the character and the style of the piece. Okay, now added to that question, could I ask you what musical features give the piece its character? So what in the music made it, well, what did we say, cheerful or majestic? Now George has hinted at it's sort of a quite loud. Okay, so the dynamics add to the character. Did you notice in the traurig section it was a little bit quieter? So you could mention that. What about other things? Maybe the tempo. How does the tempo relate to the character of the piece? I wouldn't have said that it was particularly slow. So the fairly lively character, yeah. The fairly lively character, and okay, we've got some comments coming in. Let's read through these comments. The broken chords is what made me think of the chase. Okay. Yeah, those sort of things. Okay, so it was quite fast, and it was fairly fast in the middle section as well. Now, very interesting word just came out from Komsomonichi. The tempo was fast, it wasn't slow, but it was like a dance feeling. Now, dance music, you're correct. All right, dance music is very often, almost always in fact, in 3/time. So you can actually mention that in an oral test. If it's 3 beats in the bar and it's not too slow, you could say it gave it a dance-like feel. Okay? So there's an interesting answer. So when you get up to grade 4 and above, if you're talking about the character of the piece, there's a few little ideas. And a little hint for you. When you're doing this character question, or in many other aspects of the oral tests, if you're prepared beforehand of what sort of questions you're going to be asked, See, this question is a typical one where people just get stumped by the question. They're not prepared for it. But in your mind, if you're doing grade 4, for example, you can have in your mind, right, the piece is going to be either happy or sad, or fast or slow, and I've just got to picture a few little set answers that I can give, depending on what the examiner will play, okay? So be prepared, and you'll get a better mark in your tests. Yes, a good point there. Komsamanichi is saying, so when it's dance feeling, it's like 3-time, and if it's in 2-time, it's like a march feeling. Absolutely right, okay. And the major key, yes, the major key gave a happy feeling, and the minor key gave a, well, that is the absolutely, probably the best answer for happy and sad. You can always have that one prepared. Major is happy, and minor is sad. So have that one in the back of your mind if you're doing this particular test. Now, we're going up through the grades. What about the period of music? Now, music is divided into periods, and for those who are going from grade 5 onwards, you'd have to answer whether it's in the Baroque, the classical, romantic, or contemporary. 20th century they used to call it, but now we're in the 21st century, so let's call it modern contemporary music. Okay, so what period of music do you think it came from? And can you give me any particular reasons why? Okay, Butterfly Wings is going for the classical period. Now, can you give me any particular reasons why? What about classical music did you hear in this piece? Why would it not be Baroque, for example, or romantic? What is particular about the classical period? I know we sometimes have a little bit of delay with the internet. When I'm asking a question, especially if there's a little bit of a lag in the internet, I don't get your answers straight away. So I'm just filling in the gaps a little bit whilst I'm waiting. Now, Jasmine is thinking 20th century. And Kompsomanichi is thinking romantic because of the introduction of dynamics and tempo. Okay, now, there's some interesting points there. Now, you made a little reason why, the dynamics and tempo. In the classical period, there was a move away from the block dynamics of Baroque music. So do you remember we had that sudden piano in the middle of the first half? Okay, that would be in a Baroque style. But what you don't get in Baroque music is the use of crescendo very much. Occasionally some performers might interpret it with a little bit of crescendo, but generally the way to perform Baroque music is with what they call terrace dynamics. So it's either soft or loud, and the changes are not gradual but sudden. Okay, so that eliminates the Baroque, and there was definitely crescendo in there. 20th century music would have a lot of discords. Maybe it might be jazzy as well. I don't think we could say this piece was jazzy. And most of the harmony, I'm sorry Jasmine, was fairly tonal. It didn't have any sort of big clashes. So the graduated dynamics. Now that leaves us with the classical and the romantic. So what differences do you think there are between the classical and the romantic? We have two options left. Who's going to go with Butterfly Wings and who's going to go with, who is it, Kompsomanichi? Okay, Xu Ping Ng saying the classical melody with broken chords. Yes, there are lots of these. Yeah, and that is quite classical to have these broken chords, or the. It's not in this piece, but that's a similar sort of example called the Alberti bass that you get in the classical period. Okay, the harmony isn't too intense. The harmony isn't that rich. Okay. Now, XLDM saying I'm doing grade 2, but I still think it's classical, however I'm not sure. Well, I'll put you all out of your misery. It was actually a classical period piece by Beethoven, although I'm going to say, in the defense of those who went for romantic, Beethoven sort of lived a little bit over the bridge between the classical and the romantic period. So he was forward looking. Okay, You cannot say that on midnight of the 19th century beginning that music suddenly changed. Okay, there is a transition. So some late classical pieces having hints of the Romantic period to follow, and some early Romantic period pieces will have hints of the classical period that came before. So Beethoven is a little bit of a bridge, but generally Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven we class as classical composers. Okay, so that's that one. Now, another thing you have to do in the higher grades, but it's good for all of you, is sight singing. Now, I can't test sight singing through a live stream because I can't hear you sing. But what we can do is reverse sight singing. And we've done this in the past and it's been quite successful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you some notes and you have to name them. Because in sight singing, you see the notes and you have to sing them. Okay, it's just the reverse of the same thing. So, I noted down here which little section we were going to do. Right, okay, now I'm going to try and hide what I'm doing so you can't just see my hands and play you a few little notes in a phrase. Okay, now I should tell you that this is in the key of C major, all right? So there is a C, I'll give you that one. Can you name the notes in the phrase that follows? I'm going to hide my hand with this piece of paper. So we'll go through them one by one. Here is a C. What is the next note that you can hear? Any takers? This is like reverse sight singing. Okay, Butterfly Wings is correct with D, as is this is George. Okay, so then we have those three notes, which should be quite simple. Can anyone tell me those three notes as a group? I'm waiting for your internet delay to catch up. Right. I think you meant a slight inversion of that, George. You've got C, D, C. D, C, D, yes. Compsomanici is D, C, D. So you're only doing grade 2, did I remember? No, it's XLDM. Okay, D, C, D. All right, now I'm going to go on to the next bar. Tell me what the next two notes are. I'm going to play the D, C, D again. Okay. We have D, C, D, and then the next two notes. I'll play them once more. E and C, very good. Nikos, right, we're getting all the answers coming in at once. Now, it possibly could be a little bit unfair depending on who can type faster or who has got the fastest internet connection. But you are all correct. Right, I'm going to play those two bars again and add two more notes. So after that, what are the next two notes? If you can do this, you can sight sing. It's just the reverse. Well, you wrote an awful lot there. Don't know who types first. The challenge is knowing the first note, knowing the note. Right, Yvette Kuhn says it's F, D, correct, and XLDM also got the same answer. Okay, right, now, there are two more notes to finish the phrase. What were the last two notes that I just played? Play it again. Right, we have a variation in answers here. So let's give a few more people a chance to answer. We've got Napur saying GE. This is George, GD, XLDM, GD. And George is going back now on his answer and saying it's an E. Compsomanici, GD. Right, well, half of you are right in there. It is actually G to E. Now, let's think about it. Hear that last two notes there? If you finish off that little pattern, you've got a major triad or an arpeggio, okay? So that would be what you need to work out that that is just a G, E, C, like in the arpeggio of C major. Yeah, can you hear it? All right, and you can practice this. All right, sometimes you could have a piece in front of you. Now this is very useful for those who play instruments where they cannot visually see the notes. For example, wind players like not flutes, woodwind players, yeah, and brass players. Okay, and there are various combinations where you can actually get different notes with the same fingering. And you have to be able to hear the note before you play it. All right, so it's quite useful for that. And you can practice yourself. You can see a note and see if you can hear what it's going to sound like before you play it. Right, now let's move on a little bit. Texture. All right, does anyone know what we mean by texture? Because this comes up at grade 6 and 7, I think it is, and obviously grade 8. Texture is like the layers of a sandwich. Okay, so you're going to describe your sandwich to me. Is there a lot of filling in there? How many pieces of bread are there? Okay, so in musical terms, you have to talk about how many voices you can hear. And are those voices playing as blocks in one, or we call that homophonic music, or are they like interweaving, like many voices questioning and answering? And this is texture of the music. Okay, now there is a difference in the texture, just like there was a difference in the character. And this piece has two main sections. So I'm going to play the two sections again, maybe without the repeat of the first section, and tell me how the texture changes from the first section to the second section, okay? Whilst you're still answering, I will play the first section again. Okay, right, Nikos has an answer for us. Melody with accompaniment. Okay, so that would be obviously the first section you were talking about, yeah? And then you've got the second. What is the texture of the second? Okay, compsomanici. The first section's texture was like a group of voices singing together in a chorus. Okay, don't worry about the loud and the soft. That is a correct answer, but not actually answering the question about texture. So yeah, like a chorus. So we call that homophonic, meaning one sound. Homophonic music is when all the sounds, like in chords, move together, and you have that sort of texture there. Okay, now Butterfly Wings is adding to us. It's all more or less tune and accompaniment. Correct. But accompaniment is heavier in the first section, more chordal, and the Alberti bass in the later section. Very good answer. Yes, you have an Alberti bass in the later section. One word, or two words, one idea you can use for describing texture is thick and thin. All right, so the texture in the opening section is much thicker, and it's a thinner texture in the second section. Okay, okay, you tell me, how many voices could you hear in the second section? In the first section, we had chords of usually 4 notes. Right? Like, as someone mentioned above, like a choir singing all together, soprano, alto, tenor and bass. Okay? How many voices are singing in the second section? What is the texture like there? It's thinner, yeah. Again, can anyone be specific? And yes, George, well done. 2 voices, okay. Right, exactly. Komsomonichi has got it in there, 2 voices, and Nikos again, 2 voices. So that's what they mean by the texture. Now, related to that question, we have the texture, which is talking about the layers, if you like, vertically of the music. All at one point, what can you see cutting through a slice of it, yeah? There is also the structure of the music, and that is how it's constructed horizontally. So how do the different sections progress with time? For example, you could say there are 2 main sections, or 3 main sections, or the first section was a repeat of the second section, or something like this. That is the structure of the music. Now, Nikos is giving us an answer, ABA. Yes, that is correct. Do you know the specific term for ABA? There's a special word for that, where you have an A section that's repeated at the end and a contrasting middle section. I'll give you a little clue. If it were just 2 sections, A and B, we would call it binary form. What do we call it? Yes, Siuping Eng. It is ternary form. Excellent answer. So this piece was in ternary form because the A section was repeated again at the end. Okay, now when you get up to the higher grades, it might be going above some of you who are lower grades, but stay tuned because one day you will be doing the higher grades. One of the questions is about modulations, and that's when a piece changes key. I'll give you some little hints for those who've not done this ever before. So modulations can be to the dominant, subdominant, or the relative major or minor. Okay, now the relative major or minor is a very easy one to hear because if you're in a major key and then suddenly it ends up in a minor key, you've modulated to the relative minor, or vice versa to the major. Okay, modulations to the dominant and subdominant are a little trickier to hear, but a little clue is that the modulation to the dominant has a rising feel. You can feel like an extra note has been raised, a semitone higher, like a sharp has been added somewhere that shouldn't be in the original key. And conversely, a modulation to the subdominant has a sort of a flattening, sinking feel, where there's maybe a flat been added, a note's been lowered by a semitone. So I'm going to play you one little phrase from here. It's the beginning of the middle section. Now, did that modulate to the dominant, the subdominant, or the relative minor? I'll play it to you again. Did it change from a major to a minor key? Did it have a rising feel or a flattening, sinking feel? Maybe we haven't got any. Oh, did someone say they were doing grade 7 earlier? If you are, this should be within your grasp. What sort of a modulation was that? Waiting for the internet to catch up with us. All right, Komsomonichi's going for a flattening feel, so subdominant. George is also going for subdominant. Any further takers? And Hua Wen Wang is going for dominant. All right, now, Butterfly Wings is doing Trinity exams. So I think in Trinity, you go for these sort of things like modulations and cadences a little bit earlier grades. You don't have the singing in Trinity. And Napur's going for the rising feel. So we've got a split answer here. I'm going to try and make it a little bit more obvious. Okay, this is the second phrase. That note there in the left hand is the one that gives it away. Normally in the key signature, that note should be this. It's raised to there. So it's a rising feel. That is a modulation to the dominant. Okay, sorry, it's not subdominant. I know the tune is getting lower, but it's the harmony that's rising, not the tune itself, okay? It's very subtle and you need a lot of practice to get the idea of that. Now, Nora is asking, will there be questions for ABRSM Grade 5? We have already covered, I don't know what time you joined us, if you joined us late. We've gone right through from Grade 1, all the way through, we're going, you know, to Grade 7 and 8 now. But a lot of these questions are relevant for every grade. So, after this live stream is finished, do replay it and you'll have some grades 1 to 5 questions at the beginning as well. So, don't worry there. Okay, some things we talked about earlier were the like the character of the piece and the style and period of the piece. Okay, so that's in Grade 5. Also sight singing, we did reverse sight singing, that's in Grade 5 as well. Okay, now cadences. We're going right up to the top grades now. Right, let's do the cadence at the end of these two bars. Now a cadence, and anyone can do this. This is actually quite an easy question. I think it goes from Grade 6 onwards to do cadences, and maybe a slightly earlier in Trinity, maybe Grade 5. Butterfly wings, you could let me know about that. When you did your Grade 5, were there cadences? Okay, a cadence is a group of chords that close off a phrase. And we have set cadences called a perfect cadence, an imperfect cadence, an interrupted cadence, and a plagal cadence. Perfect sounds nice and final and finished. That's why it's called perfect. Imperfect cadences sound like that's not the end of the piece. It could go on, all right? So the piece could not just stop there. Interrupted cadences sound like it was about to finish and then it veers off in a different direction. Basically, it goes into the relative major or minor. So we're in a major key, happily going along, perfect cadence coming up, and then suddenly the last chord is minor. It's like changes direction suddenly. And the plagal cadence is what I call the amen cadence. It's a finished sort of cadence, but it's a softer finish. So, we're going to do the first 8 bars again. Okay, what sort of cadence is that? Did it sound finished, like the piece could finish there? Or did it feel like we could go on? Nikos is going for a perfect cadence. This is George is agreeing with him. And Sheeping is agreeing again. And comes, right, we have a consensus of opinion. I think it's 5 of you already have said perfect cadence. So you are all correct. Now, that's the easy bit. Okay. Earlier, yeah, it did sound finished there. If we finished there, that would be an imperfect cadence, but we added one more chord to sound finished. So that's called a perfect cadence. Now, do you remember earlier we did the reverse sight singing? Now we're going to make it a little bit harder. We're going to do the bass line. So I'm going to play you the last 4 chords, and I'm going to give you that the first chord has a C at the bass. Now, how am I going to do this where you can't see? Right, excuse me a moment. I am just going to move the camera so you can see the curtains. Right, just make sure that that's... No, a bit further. Excuse me 1 second. Right, you can't see what I'm playing now. So here is a blind test. Okay, here is a C. Now, what is the bass note from here? Anyone get that bass note? I'll play the first one again. This is a C. Can you hear that bass note? Now this is really testing your listening skills. It's not a D, I'm sorry. I could play it on its own, but let's see if anyone can get it first. I'll sing it for you down there. G would be something different. We're hovering all the way around it. Bom, 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 bom. Now, how many steps did I go down? Go down from C. Bom, 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 bom. This is quite tricky. It's an F. Well done, George. Okay. And Nikos as well. Right. Now, from there, we've got C, F. What's the next one? What is that bottom note down there? We just had the F. G, good. And then the final one. Okay, so we had C, F, G, and I can't sing this one, it's too low. Down there. I don't think it would be B, C, because it ends. Yes, now I'll bring you back to visual. Okay. Right, it's a C because in a perfect cadence we end on the key note. That's what makes it sound finished. Okay, so the last one is a C. And what's the chord before it? We said it's C, F, G, C. So what chord? It's chord 1 at the end is a C. What is the chord before the C? The one that had the G in the bass. What do we call that? You should know if you've done your theory, if you're up to grade 5 theory, or if you're doing higher grades in the oral tests, what chords make certain cadences. So a perfect cadence is something to 1. What is the chord before chord 1 in a perfect cadence? 5 to 1. Well done, George. Okay, 5 to 1. Now, okay, you are almost correct. There are 2 options for a perfect cadence. I'm going to play you what you've actually told me, 5 to 1. But this is what I actually played. It's very subtle. And if you said 5 to 1, you'd probably get almost full marks. But there is a subtle extra note that gets added. Yes, well done, George. It's a dominant 7, 5-7. This is without the dominant. It's a nice clean sound. The dominant 7th, sorry, has a richer sound. That note there makes it a little bit richer. Okay, again I'll play it without the dominant 7th. And with the dominant 7th. Can you hear it? Okay. So that's the dominant 7th. Okay, so we've gone through all the grades, right from 1 to 8, covering many, many different types of oral questions, and I hope you found this useful. We will be doing another live stream probably on the 11th of November. Okay, so we're going to have a couple of weeks break, and then we're coming back here on the 11th of November. And thank you all again for all your participation. Please leave comments below if there are anything you don't understand or we want further sort of clarification on. And also, can I give you just a little plug here, because a few of you have just started joining our WhatsApp group. We have a Music Online UK WhatsApp group for subscribers like you who are really interested in making their music education better And there it's like a closed little group where just people that are interested in music education share ideas and share their little performances with each other. And then it's just a nice little atmosphere between everybody there. So I'll put a little comment in the description below of how you can join that group, and hope to see some of you there. And you can just chat amongst yourselves, okay? But until November the 11th, thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.